There is a quiet discipline inside Japanese car culture that never made it into American driving habits, and that gap shows up clearly in repair bills, in engine life, and in the resale value of cars that were maintained by two very different types of owners. Japanese mechanics don't wait for a warning light. They don't wait for a noise. They work on a rhythm, monthly, seasonal, annual, and that rhythm is built around cleaning and inspecting parts that most Western drivers assume are self-maintaining. The truth is, no part of your car is truly self-maintaining. Every component collects contamination, every surface builds deposits, and every ignored corner eventually becomes an expensive problem. What you're about to see is not a list of obscure repairs. These are accessible, simple cleaning tasks that take minutes, and yet skipping them is silently shortening the life of your engine, your fuel system, and your safety systems right now. Number 1. The throttle body. The throttle body is the gateway between clean air and your engine, and over time it becomes one of the dirtiest, most neglected components in the entire intake system. Every time blow-by gases from the crankcase circulate back through the intake, they leave behind a sticky, oily carbon residue that coats the throttle plate and the bore walls surrounding it. At first, the buildup is thin and invisible, but month after month, it thickens into a dark, tarry layer that restricts airflow, disrupts the air-fuel ratio, and forces your engine control unit to constantly compensate. The result is rough idling, hesitation on acceleration, poor fuel economy, and in modern drive-by-wire systems, a throttle response that feels vague and untrustworthy. Japanese mechanics clean the throttle body with a dedicated spray and a soft cloth every month as a standard ritual. Not a repair, a routine. And what lives directly upstream of that throttle body is something even dirtier and even more ignored. Number 2. The mass airflow sensor. The mass airflow sensor, or MAF, is one of the most precise and most vulnerable sensors in your entire engine management system. It measures the exact volume and density of air entering the engine, and it feeds that data to the ECU in real time, every second you drive. The sensing element itself is a hair-thin wire or film that must remain completely clean to read accurately, but it sits directly in the path of incoming air, which means it collects oil mist, dust particles, and airborne contamination with every mile. A dirty MAF sensor doesn't trigger an immediate warning light. It simply starts lying to your ECU, reporting incorrect airflow data that causes the engine to run rich or lean without you ever knowing. The fuel economy drops quietly, the power feels slightly flat, and eventually that sensor fails completely at the worst possible moment. Japanese technicians clean it monthly with sensor safe spray, a 60-second task that protects one of the most expensive sensors on the car, but there's another sensor nearby that collects contamination in an entirely different way, and its failure hits even harder. Number 3. The idle air control valve, or idle speed system. When you sit at a stoplight and your engine idles rough, surges up and down, or occasionally stalls, the idle air control valve is almost always part of the conversation. This small valve regulates the amount of air bypassing the throttle plate at idle, allowing the ECU to maintain a stable idle speed regardless of load from the air conditioning, power steering, or electrical systems. Carbon and oil deposits build inside this valve the same way they build in the throttle body, slowly, invisibly, and destructively. The pintle or rotating disc inside the valve begins to stick, responding sluggishly or not at all to ECU commands. What follows is an idle that hunts, a cold start that stumbles, and a fuel mixture at idle that swings out of control. Japanese workshops pull and clean this valve monthly because they understand that idle quality is the heartbeat of engine health, and an irregular heartbeat is always a warning. What's feeding all of these intake components, though, is a filter that most drivers only replace when it looks dirty enough to photograph, and that standard is dangerously wrong. Number 4. The air filter housing and intake tract. Most drivers understand that the air filter needs replacing, but almost no one cleans the housing it sits inside, or the intake tract connecting it to the throttle body. And that oversight is significant. Over time, the interior of the air filter housing collects fine dust that bypasses the filter media, dead insects, moisture residue, and in humid climates, even early mold growth. That contamination sits directly upstream of every component you've read about so far, and every time the engine breathes, it pulls from that housing. Japanese mechanics remove the air filter, wipe down every interior surface of the housing with a clean cloth, inspect the intake tube for cracks or loose clamp connections, and check the fresh air intake snorkel for blockages. It takes 4 minutes. And it means the air entering the engine is genuinely clean, not just filtered through a clean element sitting in a contaminated box, but move past the intake system entirely, and there's something in the fuel system that collects deposits just as aggressively and gets cleaned even less. Number 5. The fuel injectors and injector tips. Fuel injectors operate under extraordinary precision, spraying atomized fuel in exact quantities at exact timing intervals through nozzle openings measured in microns. And those microscopic openings are exactly where deposits love to form. Every time you shut the engine off, residual heat soaks back into the injector tips and bakes the last fuel droplets into carbon varnish. Over thousands of heat cycles, that varnish accumulates and begins to distort the spray pattern. Instead of a fine, even mist that burns completely, you get a dribble or an irregular spray that leaves unburned fuel in the combustion chamber, fouling spark plugs, contaminating oil, and producing carbon deposits on intake valves. Japanese mechanics use fuel system cleaners monthly as a preventive measure and periodically perform ultrasonic injector cleaning as part of scheduled maintenance, not as a response to misfires. The difference in combustion efficiency between clean and partially clogged injectors is something you feel the first time you drive after a proper cleaning. But there's one more part in this routine that has nothing to do with the engine, and it may be the most important cleaning task of all. Number 6. The cabin air filter and HVAC ducts. This is the part that surprises people, because it's not mechanical, it's not under the hood, and it has nothing to do with engine performance. But Japanese mechanics clean or replace the cabin air filter every single month in high-pollution environments, and every driver in that system breathes cleaner air, runs a more efficient HVAC system, and unknowingly protects their blower motor from premature failure. The cabin air filter sits behind the glove box or under the dashboard, filtering every cubic foot of air that enters the passenger compartment through the ventilation system. When it clogs with dust, pollen, mold spores, and particulate matter, the blower motor works against increased resistance, drawing more current, running hotter, and wearing out faster. Evaporator coils behind a clogged filter stay damp longer and grow mold, which then circulates through the vents every time you run the air conditioning. This is the filter most drivers remember last and replace almost never, and it's the one affecting the air you breathe every single mile you drive. Every single part covered in this video is accessible to any driver willing to spend 30 minutes and a few dollars on the right products. None of this requires a lift, a specialty tool, or years of mechanical experience. What it requires is the willingness to treat your car the way Japanese mechanics have always treated theirs, with consistent attention, before problems develop rather than after they've already done damage. The gap between a car that reaches 250,000 miles and one that struggles past 100,000 is rarely about luck, and it's rarely about the brand on the badge. It's about the habits of the person behind the wheel and under the hood. These cleaning routines are those habits, distilled and made practical for any driver, anywhere. Start with 1. Build the rhythm. And subscribe to Car Care Nest, because every video on this channel is built to keep your car running longer, harder, and smarter than the one parked next to yours.